Hi, this is Matt Donegan at Challenger Stories. I'm here with Jyoti Roy, founder of GreenEnco. GreenEnco are technical advisors for large-scale solar projects, and they've got an absolutely fascinating business in a really, really high-growth sector. Jyoti, welcome to Challenger Stories. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today talking about your business. I find it fascinating. We've obviously spoken before. Tell me more about the business. Tell me what GreenEnco do.
Thank you, Matt, and good to be here with you. GreenEnco is a technical advisor and engineering solution provider for large-scale solar energy storage projects. And we work with a number of customers. We call them partners. They traditionally come from whether developer or independent power producer or fund, asset owner, banks, and different services that we offer across the whole project lifecycle from development to project financing and then operational asset optimization.
Okay. And you do these projects where? Because the size of scale of project that you do, they're very large. They're very, very impressive. They're not domestic marketplace. So whereabouts you do them?
So there are a number of markets we provide our services to. So far we have provided in 16 markets, largely in Europe, Asia, Southeast Asian markets, total 16 market where we have been providing the services to from our two offices. UK is being our headquarter, and looking into the growth trajectories in Southeast Asian market, we open our very first overseas office in India in 2023. So yes, from these two offices, we are providing services to these markets.
So how many countries is it now in total?
So far, 16.
16.
16.
16 countries. How many years have you guys been going?
7 years, just over 7 years.
Wow.
Back end of 2017 when we started.
Jyoti, that's really impressive because these are massive, these projects, aren't they? I mean,
They are really big.
what's the average size?
It varies in different markets. For example, in Europe, they are somewhere in the range of 30, 40 megawatt. But when it goes into different other markets, for example, we have worked in New Zealand. Their project sizes, you're talking about somewhere in the range of 300, 400 megawatt, one single location. And the biggest one we have worked on in Middle East. These numbers are changing quite frequently, Matt. The biggest one we have worked in over 2,000 megawatt, one single site. So precisely 2.2.
2.2 gigawatt installation. Now, put that in context. What would that power? A 2.2 gigawatt system, what's that going to power in terms of cities?
Yeah, for example, it could easily power whole Mazda city.
That's incredibly impressive. So you guys are at the forefront of fighting climate change, aren't you? Let's put it really simple.
That's the reason actually we exist, Matt. And when we started this, the reason for, or the goal for our business is creating a better world in a changing climate. And that changing climate is not necessarily just climatic aspects. So three ways we see this changing climate. One, environmental, of course, commercial, and social. Because without integrating social element to climate looks incomplete.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing massive shifts in energy supply globally. I mean, we've seen huge shifts, of course, in Europe. We are seeing massive climate change happening a lot faster than we predicted, and that's caused an enormous commercial and economic ripple. In fact, not so much a ripple, it's becoming a tidal wave in certain countries. So it's a fascinating area that you're in. Obviously, it's a huge growth sector. Who are you refer to them as partners and not customers. So who are your partners?
So, and just before answering that question, Matt, the reason actually we call them partners, if we don't understand their pain, how do we serve them better? So once we create that partnership, create the relationship management, that's we serve them the way that they need. So we work with companies like independent power producers, not naming any particular name. There are 80 plus different partners that we are currently working with. They are independent power producers or banks who are investing into these renewable projects, and developers who are developing those projects, and some fund managers who raise different funds and manage those assets.
So it could be banks, it could be private equity. I mean, you're sort of on the borderline of, well, mass energy utility suppliers as well, right?
That's right.
Right. Okay. So really, really significant players. Okay. So how do you differentiate yourself from the rest of the marketplace? How do you distinguish yourself from the competition in what is essentially a technical area? So your USP, is that tough to get across?
There are we constantly innovate very traditional services that we do, like due diligence or asset optimization, existing asset optimization. Constant innovation is one of our core values. And like you said, this is a fairly technical landscape. But what differentiates us, in addition to the innovation point that I mentioned, is the way we see a problem and the way we deal with a problem. Like I said, we call our customers our partners. So we really go very granular to understand their need and bringing that level of flexibility to customize the need for our partners, integrating with our know-hows, integrating with our innovation, with our solutions. So to answer your question, I think technical solution is one side. Once that wrapped up with company culture, company values, that's where we differentiate ourselves, understanding their pain and deliver solution they need.
We're going to come on to the company value aspect in a minute, because it is also a differentiator. As I stated earlier, we have spoken before. I know something about your business. Why I find it fascinating is why you're doing the interview today. You have a very high cultural level in your business. You set the bar pretty high when it comes to your values. So explain a bit about your values, because they are a value. They're part of the value proposition of the business, aren't they? They're not just how you act and behave. They are how you act and behave commercially as well as emotionally.
Exactly, because these values, they connect us, all team members within us, because we have two offices and remote working, location at a distance. How do we bring the same level of deliverables, whether we do projects in Asian market or do in Europe or in Africa? It's the same deliverables that goes out. It's the same thought, same philosophy that goes out when it comes to one particular problem that we solve. So we have 5 core values. Passion, which propel us to go extra miles, what we do. And taking level of ownership is not just really taking an ownership, I would say adaptation of ownership to understand what are the project needs. And innovation, bringing new solutions for the same problem, even though the problem we see, the same problem in different project comes differently. So how do we bring innovation to custom-made, tailor-made solution for them? And partnership is one of our core values. And that partnership, not just within our team, partnership with external parties that we work with, and trust.
Yeah. So what inspired you to start the business in the first place?
I will take one step back from these. Why I jumped into renewable. Back in 2004, I feel extremely lucky that sitting with you, Matt, I had a near miss. I could have died from one of the climate event in 2004. Tsunami in Chennai. I was working back then in power sector, but coal-based power sector. And I changed my journey to renewable in 2005. Starting GreenEnco journey back in 2017, we have been busy building a lot of solar assets, large-scale solar farm, etc., into different market. And I'm not talking about ourselves building project. Whole world was building project. And for the UK market, historical solar market has been driven based on certain financial mechanism, feed-in tariff, renewable obligation certificate. There are some subsidy mechanism was available. And in 2016-17, all those mechanism was coming to an end. And I was thinking, what next? We built large assets for last many years. How do you optimize? How do you manage in a smarter way those assets so that it bring more financial return going forward?
Yeah.
And I was, during my past time in academia, developed some algorithm. And that was the main driver to bring those algorithm, and with the hope that this will bring some commercial value proposition to those assets they're already deployed.
Yeah.
So that was the main reason for starting GreenEnco back in 2017.
Jyoti, you mentioned something really very profound there. You said that you were almost the victim of a climate event, a major climate event. And that was the turning point in your mind to go from one energy source as an engineer to what you're doing now in solar. That's a profound why, Jyoti.
Wake up call. It was a wake up call for me.
But it gives you a purpose, right? It gives you a why. Do you maintain that why throughout the business? Do your not just your external commercial partners, but your partners inside the business, do they live by the same values that you do?
I will answer this question in a different way, Matt. We, as a business, we do different companies, they have different team meetings, etc. The main meeting for us is to go through, of course, weekly review, etc., etc. What to do, how do we allocate resources? But half of that time we allocate value nurturing exercise at the beginning before we jump into the project review. And there we nurture and we share, all of us share what value we have nurtured last week through our work. So, and this is one of our challenges. How do we maintain this? Because once actually this culture is streamlined, my job would be as the founder of the company would be easier. So this is not just actually how I felt and changed my life to move my professional career from one stream to another stream. That has continued throughout.
Right. So it's both the commercial rationale, it's the commercial pathway, and the vision and purpose of the business is all completely aligned. Yeah, that's fantastic.
This is so important. This is so important to
Yeah.
to continue doing what we do, but also to the wider goal, like I said, the creating a better world to live in a better climate. That's our objective.
I can't think of a greater purpose. So it's been said, and there's philosophers have talked about this one particular aspect, that if you have a strong enough why, if you have a strong enough purpose, then as challenging as times become, running a business can be very challenging. If you have the why, then you'll find the how. You'll be able to deliver it, and you guys are definitely doing that. So you're going 7 years. There's currently a team of around about 8. Is that right? The full-time staff currently, but that's growing all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, so 2 offices, 8 in the UK market and another 8 in Indian market. So total 16.
16 in total. Okay. So and that's just expanding. What are the plans for the future? What have you got for GreenEnco in say 5 years?
So we are self-funded. That's important to mention. We are self-funded, and we wanted to continue this journey like this. And I just can't thank enough to our partners who believed in us, who continuously coming back to us. This is helping us to run our business. In terms of next 5 years, we wanted to continue at the same level. We always add on more innovative solution to the problem that we face in the market as a society, as the whole a sector, and then we bring in solutions to it. In terms of our adding new service verticals to our offerings to our partners, but also we are currently looking at African market and Middle East market, because expanding physical expansion, we are operating into a 16 market, but physical presence into 2 market and extending that physical footprint into a new market, we take very strategic decision in terms of how long-term that market is, what are the business proposition in that market is looking like. So we look at very much strategic point of view, and currently we are looking at African market and Middle East market as our next expansion.
Okay, so you've got natural growth, organic growth inside the business, which has been from day one. Fantastic. Not taking any debt on, not taking on external investors. So you're moving at the speed you want to move at. That's fantastic. What are the challenges along the way? What have you found your biggest single issue in the last couple of years?
I would exclude the COVID phase. I guess that was probably not the most challenging phase, because there are a lot of other challenges happen afterwards, which we are all dealing with. I would say maintaining this momentum and scaling up the way we are scaling up. Cash flow, maintaining cash flow is super critical for us, because every single penny counts for us, because we are self-funded. And looking into resource planning, looking into service planning, looking into any other future investment towards our human resources or towards our further innovative solution that we are bringing in is very important. So cash flow challenge and scaling up challenge, maintaining the same level of culture within the team. When team is growing, it challenge become multifold. So these are the 3 main challenges, I would say: cash flow and scaling up and maintaining the same level of values within the team.
Okay. And is your goal to become a market leader, or are you already a market leader? Because you're not just a business. I'd best describe you as a social entrepreneur, right? So are you leading in that part of the marketplace?
Approaching there, because leading is very subjective. There are quite a few people following us the way we are doing, and that is the reason why people are actually coming back to us to join the journey to the next level or next project. Yes, it's a journey. It's a journey. Whether we are there yet, long way to go. That's what I see.
So What does winning look like for you? What does it mean at the end of the day? When do you think that you're in front?
Creating impact. I think that's how I see winning on something. I'll give you a couple of examples perhaps. So one of the proprietary solution we have, we call it PVAPM, PV Asset Performance Management. It's data analytics, a lot of algorithm that involved in there. We applied this strategy and a solution to number of different partners in the UK, in India, in Vietnam. What it does, it create additional generation from the existing solar system.
Oh, right.
And the impact that creates, two impacts it creates. One, of course, additional generation means additional revenue. So that's a financial impact for the funder or bank behind them. They feel more confident, more comfortable. That means they help to bring future project financing to green projects, green energy sources.
So just to clarify that, you generate more power from existing arrays. Is that right?
Correct.
That's a really strong proposition. Surely you're developing is kind of to stretch the expression as money for old rope, but you're doing money for old cells.
Investment has already happened when the project financing has happened
So
day one.
you're kind of providing money for nothing, right?
Only very minimum. If you look at the uplift that happened,
Yeah.
essentially yes,
Very
improving
well.
for nothing. But because the uplift, the revenue, that additional revenue it creates, and the level of investment that one to implement is significantly different.
That's kind of like the biggest selling point in the world.
And that is why this PVAPM is taking huge amount of traction
Wow.
every year.
Wow.
And we are currently doing a project in India, is 450 megawatt project.
Wow.
And there are a few other small projects are happening as well. There are a few projects we are about to start in Ireland. And that creates this financial impact. But also by creating additional generation from an existing system, it offset further CO2. So there's a
Yes.
climate impact, additional climate impact. This is creating. So this is creating impact. This is a win for me. I'll give you another example. We have another small newborn baby within our service vertical. We call it solar EV, because when we drive our EVs, we feel probably very excited that we're not polluting our society. But when you are charging, depending on the source of electricity you are using,
Yeah.
we are not green fully if you look at the whole value chain. So what we are demonstrating is generating power from solar and then charge vehicle.
Yeah.
So we did one UK-India bilateral project in Bangalore, literally in the middle of COVID period. And we did some market exercises. There's only one e-scooter in one of the universities in Bangalore where we have deployed the system. And I visited after 6 months. And I was talking to the girl who had that EV and found from her that since this charging station was deployed in the campus, 6 more e-scooters was purchased. So that was my win.
Yeah, that's a great win. So your wins aren't just the financial wins; that they are the moving society in the right direction, and that's part of being a social entrepreneur. And that's one of your attributes, isn't it? I mean, and that's pretty clear. Your purpose, your vision. Okay, so you mentioned the challenges around growing the business organically, and that it's a cash flow issue. How about recruitment? How about bringing the right people on board? Because you're very culture driven as well.
This is so important, and human resource challenge, we are not the only one actually facing this problem. That's market-wide challenge. But for us, another level add to it is bringing that understanding whether someone is joining us, coming with that values, technical knowledge, technical strength that you can top up, that you can add on.
Oh.
The way I say is the attitude. That's how we really look at when we recruit people, is the attitude of the people. I'll give you an example. If I'm an expert on certain subject, but I do not want to do it, no one will force me to do it.
Uh-huh.
So it's the attitude that we really pay attention most when we recruit people.
Absolutely. Higher on attitude and emotional intelligence as opposed to IQ or skills or knowledge base. I mean, you can train someone, you can teach someone technical knowledge. You can't teach them how to be a good person. I mean, that's a truism if ever I've heard it. So brilliant. Okay, so look, we talked about the challenges, talked about the growth of the business. Let's talk about leadership. So you're the leader of your business, and you're doing it admirably, and you've got purpose and you've got vision for the company's going. So that you tick a lot of those boxes. Is there a business leader out there that you look up to that you feel ticks your boxes?
To be honest, Matt, no, I do not actually follow any particular figure. Follow some thoughts in terms of being a leader. And what are those thoughts, sir? We always wanted to be ahead of the curve. And how do we bring that element within our team?
Yeah.
That is important for me as a leader. And not afraid of failure.
Yeah.
Because failure is part of journey. And
You only learn by failure. You don't learn
exactly. Better we accept, and then it build up courage and go to the next level. Bringing flexibility or adaptability of the change of world that we are, or dynamic world where we are all exposed to at the moment. So no, I mean, it is not following any particular figure, but few characters that following to continue our journey.
Yeah. Okay. So driven by philosophy more than role models. Okay. So if you were, so last question for you. I know, I appreciate you're a busy guy. You're busy saving the world. So last question for you, and that is the 18-year-old self question. So if you're going to bump into your 18-year-old self, what piece of advice would you give him?
Very interesting one. What shall I do if I go back to my 18 years old age? I probably will bring climate-minded thoughts. And I'll tell you why. Why is that? My daughter, she is now 12, and it's not just her, they at that age, the way they are aware about climate, aware about nature.
Yeah.
I didn't think that I was there when I was at their age.
Yeah.
And bring broader picture rather than just focusing on some small element, maybe short-term temporary element, just looking whole world as a bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I will reset myself.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, Jyoti, it's been quite inspiring speaking to you today, because there's not many businesses that I speak to that have as big a why, have as big a purpose, and that purpose is so profound and so huge. And what you guys are doing is you're working on these enormous projects that can have really, really significant impact on the three environments that you spoke about: social, economic, and of course climate. So, Jyoti, thank you so much for spending time with me today on Challenger Stories. You're an inspirational figure. Thank you so much, and let's keep in contact.
Thank you very much, man. I'm just thankful to all our partners, including yourself, because we build relationship to continue our journey. Thanks a lot.
Well, we're going to keep in contact. I want to see what you guys are up to. So, Jyoti Roy, GreenEnco, thank you. Goodbye.